So thank you everyone for coming to this fifth workshop for ALAA members, and also we extended our invitation to Altan's and Alan's members as well. So today we will continue the sort of professional workshop, because last week we talked about career path, right? And we had fantastic workshops there. Hopefully we'll match up their excellent presentation last time. I hope that it's not too boring today, and I hope that we would help you become more motivated to um, work around your professional development and fine-tune your career. So today we will focus on preparing a cover letter, teaching and research statements for academic job applications. And I'm delighted to also have Ruri Ueda and also Anthony Wotring, who recently got a job, and they attended this workshop last year, and they got a job. And I'm not so sure if this is the reason why they got the job, and we will know. We will know that. Um, um, so they are very I'm not look, they are pleased to contribute to this in this workshop, and I'm looking forward to that session as well. And before we begin, I like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. As we share our own knowledge, teaching, learning, and research practices, may we also pay respect to the knowledge embedded forever within the Aboriginal custodianship of country. I have a few announcements. First of all, you probably know, as I mentioned, we have ALAA Thinks Best YouTube, and please feel free to subscribe. If you don't know that, you can scan the QR code, and then we have more subscribers, and we will have about 4 more recording edited to line up on this, so that you can share, you can revisit, and so on, for future generations. And another one is, if you're interested, this is a seminar or a webinar by Altans. And this one is particularly interesting because it's on AI in language education and assessment. It's online, so you can attend. The Zoom information is there. I will send you this information after as well, so that you have the information with you. Okay. And of course, I will share the PowerPoint with you as well. Okay. So today we will be looking into key considerations around preparing your cover letter, teaching statement, and research statement. Okay. And I know some of you may still be looking for a new career and a new job, or are still completing. I think it's also a good time for you to plan about this now. You don't need to get a PhD before you start thinking about applying for a job, and knowing what the expectations are will help you collect information and develop yourself toward that goal. Okay. So first of all, the first thing I'd like you to do is I'm gonna stop sharing the screen, but this will be the sort of thing I'd like to hear from you. Tell us about yourself. I say in 1 minute, hopefully. These are some guiding questions. So who are you? What are your research interests and skills? What are you looking for in a job or in a career? Okay, I will stop sharing the screen, and I will go around and ask people to share what we have. So I will exclude Anthony and Ruli because they will talk about themselves in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first person I see on the left. So I start with Madhu.
Hello.
There you go.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Madhu Bastola, currently in Hong Kong. So I did my master from Sydney, and Professor Aek was my supervisor. I'm always proud of that. So I did my PhD from Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and then currently I'm working as a research fellow. So I'm looking for like kind of faculty positions.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Jerry.
Hello. So my research interests are about writing and vocabulary. I'm doing my PhD at the University of Leeds, but I'm in Sydney for a couple of months. What was the other prompt? What do I want to get from a job?
Yeah, what are you looking for?
Stability, which doesn't seem to exist for early career researchers these days. But I enjoy teaching, but also doing research. So I guess like a mixture of those would be nice. Anywhere in the world.
Oh, that's even better, right? You have more items to choose, right? Thank you, Jerry. Pasara, is that Thai name or am I pronouncing the right name? I don't know.
Pasara, yeah, it's not this Thai
Pasara.
name.
All right.
Pasara Namsang. Yeah, that's the correct pronunciation. Or you can just call me Marky. I
Marky.
actually just graduated a PhD in English language teaching from Thailand, Mahasarakham University. I actually study with Professor Apisak Suking. Yeah.
Okay, I know.
Yes. So I heard a lot about Professor Aek Phakiti, including reading some books you have written. And my research interest is second language acquisition. Actually, I already got a job, so I just come and observe because I'm very, very, very new member in assessment, very new. So just graduate and trying to develop my expertise as well. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. So I guess if you already have a job, it still can be quite relevant in some way because at some stage you need to apply for promotion and so on, right? So a lot of the things that you may not have yet, you probably can
right, Professor.
around that.
Thank you.
Nalali.
Right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Nurlaili, but you can call me Lely. I just completed my PhD from Monash University last month. So currently, I'm working as casual academics, like tutoring at our faculty, but also as casual research assistant. So here, I want to join this workshop, like to find some insight from other friends that how to find like more like fixed job like here in Australia, anywhere else. So I also open for any opportunities, not only in Victoria or Melbourne. Thank you.
Thank you. And next person, Victoria.
Hello, I'm Victoria. I'm doing a PhD at UNE. My research is around heritage language education, teacher beliefs and agency, and also Q methodology. What am I looking for in a job? Something full-time, something where I can use my knowledge and skills. Not quite sure what yet, but I'm open to many ideas. Thank you.
Thanks. Next person. Now, Ivana just came up, so that will be you.
Perfect. Thank you, Aek. My name is Ivana. I just finished my PhD at the University of Melbourne. And my interests are lie in psycholinguistics, second language acquisition, first language acquisition. And yeah, I'm looking for anything, more stable, postdoc or teaching position. I love both teaching and research. So yeah, it's a tough job market right now.
Yeah, right. We'll try to be positive about that, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned doctoral fellowships and so on. That could be in a lot of the options that people need to think about. Like that would then help them land into a more stable job after. I think sometimes it's like a stepping stone in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Michael?
Hi, turn on. Okay. So, hello everyone. I'm Michael. I finished my PhD at the University of Melbourne a couple of months ago, end of February, I guess. And I work on language teaching mostly about class-based language teaching, but I also work on other areas as well. And I'm looking for anything ongoing, any continuing position would be fine. And I'm here because I want to know how to, I know how to write a cover letter and edit my CV, but I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing because I get rejections within 24 hours or 12 hours. I don't know what kinds of jobs are appropriate to go for and how to write a cover letter for that. So, yeah.
I hope the workshop will be useful today.
Yeah,
I'm sure
forward.
Ruri and Anthony can share their experiences as well. The next person, Shelley.
Sorry. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Xiaoli, and I just got my PhD in Monash University. My interest in my research is more about the adult learners for long-term motivation of learning an additional language. So I'm looking for now. I'm working as a sessional academic in Monash University, but I'm looking for maybe a postdoc or teaching focused in higher education, because my research I still got a great passion in adult learners long term of learning a language and the teacher's motivation, especially in this era of like. Language teacher, learner, and AI. So in this environment. So probably this is the primary goal. Like I need teaching because my teaching, my research is greatly based on in my teaching experience. So without teaching, I have no the base. I know have no foundation to conduct my research. So looking forward to learn from the successful colleagues here in this workshop. I hope I can get a positive result. Got it rejected everywhere for several months since I started the application. I know it's quite frustrating. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it can be, but at the same time, we need to find some strategies, and I think at the same time,
Yes.
something is will happen. Celia. Celia, are you there? Okay. Laura.
Laura posted in the chat. She said that she can't use audio and video right now, but she does health communication research at ANU and is looking for a research role after a PhD connected to healthcare.
Thank you, Anthony, for noting that. Phoebe.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I'm
Hi, Phoebe.
childcare duty at the moment, so you might hear a child speaking. But hi, I'm actually missed the first part of the workshop, but is it self-introduction?
Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Phoebe. I'm from the University of Auckland. I'm in my final year of my PhD at the moment, so I'm just here to learn more about different possibilities. And in case if I want to get into academia, I would like to learn how to prepare a CV and teaching statement. I'm currently a teaching assistant in academic English studies. Yeah, so thank you.
Nice to see you again, Phoebe. Sadia, final try, Sadia.
Hello, this is Sadia. Yes. I completed my master's in English from Dhaka University. Currently, I'm working as an assistant professor at a state university in Bangladesh. And I'm planning for higher study, especially I would like to apply for my PhD position. And my research interest is language assessment and testing and cultural studies. And so I attended this workshop to get some insights from all of you. Thank you.
Okay, so you're actually from the Altans Association, right? Or not? Probably. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. It's good to know this sort of information, and we know that a lot of you already just graduated, right? Your PhD, and so that's congratulations, right? That's a big milestone for people to Okay, no worries, Celia. I've got your message. It's also a big milestone, a big achievement, right? To spend so many years doing your study and now you finish your degree. That's already a success for you. So please don't forget that you worked hard and you deserve the degree. And the next movement is to look for a job, something that you like. And even if you don't, hopefully you will. Hopefully you will. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next part, which is about introducing Ruri and Anthony. So both speakers will share their experience and share what they have done and any insights and something. So what we'll do is Ruri would first present, and then there will be Q&A straight after if you have any questions for her, and then followed by Anthony. And today, especially, Ruri would I don't know who's first, but Ruri would focus on research statement, and then Anthony would focus on teaching statements, sharing that sort of focus, but they can talk more about other things there. So may we start? Ruri, tell us about yourself. You can share the screen. I'm gonna make you the what you call the co-host.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Oh, and I just wanted to ask you, would it be possible to leave my part out of the recording because I want to share my CV or application and the documents?
Yeah.
And I don't want
we'll leave
everything
the recording,
on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, we'll pause your part. Is that right? That's what you were after?
Yep.
Okay, I will pause that.
So why we've been talking about academic journeys, like I said, I'm happy to share my story. What I've done is, if you look in that link that I just sent through, and it's this folder that I put together just for today. And you'll find in it, I've copied, this is the actual folder of all the info that I had for the job that I actually got. This is one of the very first ones that I did. So if you want to hop in, you should be able to view everything. It's also this PowerPoint that I had in a teaching statement. So that's all in that folder and that link in the chat if you wanted to take a look. But yeah, so mine, I am going to focus a little bit more on the teaching statement, but I did want to kind of just put it in a little context of where I've been and where I've come from. While I'm yapping about myself for the next few minutes, I did, just so that I could get ahead of some things, that some of the questions in the chat have been great so far, but if you had any other ones that you want me to think about and talk while I'm going through, feel free to share them. And I did want to give you the space to ask the scary questions, just because I know that there are some out there. I've asked them myself. So the idea of how do you stop yourself from comparing with others on the academic journey? I am tempted to compare myself with Ruri right now, because getting a job on that first application seems crazy to me. So how do you not compare yourself with other academics? That's always kind of a hard one. But if you want to ask some of those questions, or even just more general ones, things like, what are your just concerns as we're going through? Where do you feel in your whole application where your weaknesses might be and where you might need some help? If you want to just talk about the process a little, feel free to drop that in the chat while I'm talking, just so that I kind of know where you guys are and where you're feeling. About me. So a couple things. I'm from the States. I came to Australia as an international student. I came here at the very beginning of 2020, right before COVID hit. It was like I got off the plane and they shut everything down. I had 2 weeks of lectures in person, and then everything went to Zoom. So it was a crazy time. Before that, I had spent the last 10 years teaching in South Korea, working my way from primary school, like pre-K students, very similar to Aek, all the way through to university. Somehow they let me in there. And I completed my PhD in 2024. So it's been about 2 years of that job search, but that's a little bit about me. I did want to show you the overview. This was kind of, it won't be, I don't know if it's stereotypical. I don't know if this is what your journey will be. I just wanted to show you kind of what my process would be. And it is a pretty good foil to what Rui's did. So during the revisions that I was submitting my thesis, I did apply for 2 positions. It was the level A position. I think one of them was And then the other one, the one that's the Federation University one that's in that folder, that was the level B TESOL position. I actually got an interview for that one. Very exciting. I sweat the whole time. I was just nervous throughout. But those were my first 2 rejections. And essentially what it was is that they said I didn't have quite enough experience. So the rest of 2024, I kept applying for a couple more positions, 7 more, started to actually look beyond just purely academic roles. So like things like learning advisor or like student recruitment, just kind of professional things within the university, but maybe not like a lecturer position. And what it came down to is that I needed some support. I needed more help. And that's where this workshop that Aek's running, a lot of the ALAA ones, they were so helpful. But then I also had to look at some other places too. So throughout 2025, I kept getting some really good feedback. At the very beginning, I had an unsuccessful one at the University of Sunshine Coast. And then the chair of that committee, she came back and she said, all right, here's the position you're applying for. Here's what you would need to have on your CV to be able to successfully apply to it. And she broke down exactly kind of where the gaps were, what I needed to highlight. How do I, that point about personalizing things, you want to personalize your CV and your experience to that role that they're advertising. And that's what she told me. And it did help. Oh no, Madhu, is that not folder not working? Hold on, let me fix that.
Yeah, because
let's see if I can't share it with you. But yeah, so that was what she told me, and I really took it to heart. I joined a couple of organizations. I started trying to do more, especially with ALAA. It was really helpful to have workshops and presentations and things like that that I could come into. Oh, the link worked for you? Okay. Maybe it's just the folder then. Thanks, Victoria. But that one should work.
yeah.
But yeah, it was just kind of that idea of you needed to build some things out. And it did start to get a little hairy for me. I know most of us have lives outside of this, but it was me as the sole income of 3 kids. It was just kind of like, and then you'll see I had a separate folder. It was just kind of, this is the end of the job hunt. This is the end of 2025. And it was last 2 roles. And it was kind of, is this going to work or is this not? And then that's successfully, I got it. Is 2026. I had the interview at Charles Darwin University. That is why I'm in a hoodie right now, because all of our summer weather clothes are all packed up. I'm down to my hoodies and sweatpants. Everything else is in suitcases getting sent on. And we're moving next week. So things have been a little crazy. And I did, you'll notice between the Federation University and the Charles Darwin one, I've tried to position myself towards what's more marketable. Oh, thanks, Ivana. You'll find that it's a very strong, like, here's my experience in TESOL and here's my expertise in that area. And then what you'll see in the Charles Darwin one is that I'm a teacher. I'm a language and literacy and whichever ones they need. And it's kind of, I'm showed that diversity of skill that I've been working on the last couple of years, just because that's where the trends in the markets were. So it was just trying to make sure that as universities were restructuring, I was just trying to make myself as good of a candidate as I could. So yeah, that's the efforts that I was putting in. Hopefully you can see them in the 2 folders, but also it just took time. That very first one, that was what they said, is that you needed to build these things out. You really need to demonstrate your experience, build that teaching portfolio that you had so that you can see, like, yes, I'm a lecturer. Yes, I'm an academic, and here's what I can do. Now, when we're talking about the why of the teaching statement, there's a couple things that I did want to highlight. Sorry, I did want to get to Victoria's question. Victoria, do you want to ask and talk about it, or do you want me just to read it off?
I don't mind. So my question was, when they said to you that you didn't have enough experience, you needed more experience when you didn't get that TESOL role that you applied for. What exactly did they mean by that? You need more experience. Was it research experience or teaching experience that you needed to add?
Yeah, it was one of those funny things, because it was like, I've been a teacher at the university level for almost 10 years in South Korea, and then a teacher myself for 15 plus years. And it's just like, what more experience do I need? And it's, if you're applying in Australia, there's a very a bias prejudice. You want to demonstrate that at the university level, meeting Australian quality standards for higher education, that you can deliver lectures, you can deliver tutorials, and you can meet the needs of that that diverse student body at that university. And that was what I wasn't highlighting in my experience. I could say, yes, I'm a successful TESOL teacher. I work well with these students, but how well do you work with their students? And I think that was what the experience I wasn't necessarily as highlighting as much.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And like I said, if anybody else has any other questions, keep them coming. To the teaching statement, one of the points, and you do have to keep in mind why you're doing it. It's not just kind of a hoop to jump through or like a prompt that you can give ChatGPT. Is they're trying to figure out who you are. And you got to think from their perspective, they have very limited information on who you are, especially if you're coming in blind. It's not referred to by the committee. So they want to know as much about you as you can, and the teaching statement's one way to do that. And this idea of it is kind of like a dating risk, blind dating. It's just trying to figure out who you are. And that idea of what you're doing in the teaching statement is showing how much you care in the crafting of that document, and that it is an argument for yourself. You're putting yourself out there, and you want to, in this teaching statement, show this is what I'm good at. I can craft arguments, and I can craft one about me, especially when it's really important. It's also that teaching right now in Australian universities, and I think in New South Wales from the academics there that I've talked to, teaching is really, really important. Most offers for positions at the university level are not 40-40-20 anymore. Most of them are teaching focused. You might get an 80-20 breakdown, maybe a 7-20 or 7-30. If you're not sure, does everybody know those breakdowns? Am I just shouting numbers and no one knows what it means? No? Okay. It's the breakdown of teaching, allotment, workload for research, and workload for administration. So most times it's not 40% research and 40% teaching. It's a lot of it is in teaching, especially in the last couple of years where universities have shrunk, that they've gotten rid of some staff at some places, University of Wollongong, one, for example. And so they're building back up, and what generates money for these universities is teaching more than anything else. And they want to see, are you capable of delivering high quality education for these students? Because they're really important to the university, so they should be really important to you. And what's nice about that, the whole teaching document, it is an argument for you, but it does give you a place to talk about your reflection and growth, especially as an emerging researcher. Where do you see yourself going? What have you already developed? And what does that mean for you? So I did have a couple points. I did have I know I'm running out of time, so I won't go through all of it. What you'll see in that folder that I sent, that last ALAA workshop had a draft of that teaching statement. And I wanted just to highlight that getting feedback, drafting, redrafting, it's so important. Whatever documents you're doing, throughout all of my unsuccessful applications, I was getting feedback from my supervisors, from other academics at the university. At UOW, for one of the associate lecturer positions I applied for, I knew someone who was on the hiring committee. And I asked her to look over my documents for other places. And her feedback from that perspective was really, really helpful. So making sure that you're getting it from a lot of places really does help. And when you're aware of the teaching statement, it is an exposition. You're writing that in that genre of, this is an argument that I'm crafting. So thinking of it, how are you organizing it? What are your stages? What are you arguing? So you start with a very clear statement of position. This is who I am. Here's my goals. Here's my values. Here's what I'm going for. And then you start saying, here's how the evidence to support that for me. So you have the STAR. Does everybody know the STAR method? You state a situation. So what was that situation that aligns with your goals and values? You talk about the task. What was at hand? What did you have to do? What was the action that you took? And then what was that response? What was the final output, the result of it? Sorry. So you're demonstrating that here's my goals, but here's what it looks like in practice, in my teaching, and in my care for my students. So you're not just saying, here's my broad goals for teaching, and here's what my values are. You're saying, here's how I put it into practice, and it has demonstrable outputs for my students. And then at the very end, you have a reflection. You start looking forward. You start talking about how is it focused to the discipline. And to that point that we were making earlier is that you're starting to say, here's who I am, and here's how I would fit into your university's atmosphere, environment, culture, and here's how that works. Which means that there's a lot of good examples online. Their link in this slide here It's for the Notre Dame University one and has a good couple of statements on how to write an effective one. Just so you know, the website looks like this, and it does talk about how do you write a teaching statement. But you should be looking for those resources somewhere, whether it's in a workshop like this, somewhere you're finding what do good research teaching statements look like, and that'll really, really help just to have something to come back to, some guides there. There's also some exercises in that folder, so if you want to practice a little bit, there's some space for you to do that. And then you should be finding some resources and supports. That point of personalizing your statements, either teaching or research one, find out what that university values. What are the values? What are their goals? Look for their academic performance indicators or standards frameworks. Universities love to say, here's what we do. So you need to go out and find it and make sure that your statements are aligning with what they're doing. And like what Rui said in her application in those job standards, this is what they're looking for in that job. Make sure throughout all of your documents that it's really connected to those. And if you have any contacts with the uni, that'll help. And then just some final thoughts, since there's no more questions. Make sure you're doing your homework. You're showing your capability as a writer in these documents, so you do have to develop that. Workshops like this are a great place to start developing them, but it does take time. So the sooner you can get on that, the better. Make sure that you're also digging deeper into the process. Unless you happen to be super skilled and talented like Rui, it might take a process. So I think that was what I needed to learn throughout mine. So make sure you're taking time to think and actually plan these things. It's easy to kind of do a shotgun approach and apply for all of the jobs out there, but you really want to show, am I digging deep into these things? Making sure that you're meeting the job requirements. If you're not meeting them now, you're making steps towards meeting them. That way that you can put yourself on that path. And then try to be patient. Like I said, try not to compare with other people. It's so easy to do. But the idea of don't linger on the rejections. It's hard when I think I had a total almost 20 rejections. So don't linger on them, learn from them, get what you can from them, and then try to move on and do a little bit better. That's what I've learned from it. Oh, no, thanks, Victoria. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants to chat, I do have a meeting to run to after this, but if there's anything that you want to talk about now, I know Aek and Rui would be great to talk to. But yeah, if there's anything that I can help clear up or chat about now, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you, Anthony. Very useful. Look, this is wonderful. I'm glad to hear what you're saying just right now. It's actually very motivating. Things. And any other questions for Anthony before he leaves? Any?
Nope. So quiet.
So quiet. No, that's okay. There will be more to come.
Maybe I can I ask question for both Ruri and Anthony for that,
Yep.
especially for the cover letter. Like, thank you so much for both of you for the insight. Because actually I have written my own cover letter many times. Like, I think I have applied for a job, but unfortunately, because I was still waiting for my examination process, I know that I was just rejected from the desk evaluate for that. But I just want to because I just saw Ruri's cover letter and also the one that Anthony shared. It was kind of quite surprising to me because my cover letter, to be honest, is very short. Like only 2 or 3 paragraphs about just who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm planning to do, just very short statement. While I just saw Anthony one is just 2 pages, if I'm not mistaken, for the one that you sent to the FED uni. And then also Ruri one, very long, comprehensive explanation related to your experience. So I just want to get insight from that part, because I believe that cover letter is one of the crucial part in job applications. Is there any things that I have to put there? Is it like my previous experience combining with my current experience, with what I have achieved, or just what I'm doing now, with my future plan for the job that I want to apply? Which one? Because if I put my personal experience, like you have mentioned previously, like my teaching experience prior to my PhD, and then after I'm doing PhD, I do research assistance for example, and then also tutoring, and then what I'm planning to do for the job. Do you have any like suggestion for like what should I highlight in my cover letter for that?
Okay, start with Anthony and then Ruri.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so the cover letter is a tricky one. And I think it does depend on what the hiring committee is looking for. So if you have, say, in this specific job application, it wants a separate document for the responses to the selection criteria, then your cover letter probably doesn't need to be that long. It needs to be that strong, passionate, maybe just 1-page document saying, I want this job. And don't be afraid to say that. I tried to sound fairly academic in my earlier drafts, but near the end, I was like, I'm excited for this position. I want this one. And the cover letter is just a short little thing of saying, yes, I'm eager for this job. Yes, I want to apply for it. And here's why I would fit. And then in the rest of it, you can actually fully flesh out what makes you qualify for that position. If it's something that just wants your CV and your cover letter, maybe it's a little bit longer and you build some of those responses into those criteria into that document. But it does depend on what you want. But that idea of you want to grab their attention from the beginning, I think that does help save some time from the desk rejections. But honestly, you never really know what it is they're looking for. You're just making your best guesses at what that hiring committee looks for.
Thank you, Anthony. Ruri?
Yeah, I can just add that well, it's the same thing as Anthony said, but just read job description very well and try to guess like what they want. And also yeah, so I always try to cover things that they want to hear in the cover letter and what I can offer to them in the cover letter. And also I think it's also important to state like when you're like from when you're available for that position. And that's something that they also want to probably know. And also I'm on a visa. So I talk about a little bit about my visa at the end as well. Because sometimes they want someone like a lecturer position like immediately, right? In that case, if they hire a person who requires like a visa application, then they might want to reject the person or something like that. So yeah, I talk about my visa situation at the end of the cover letter as well. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Mm.
That's great. I know. I remember when I look at Ruri's CV, right? You mentioned like the visa, like, oh, is that what they? And I learned from you that that is what they want. You know, you just have to read what they want there, because I think that's a good strategy, right?
Yeah, sometimes they need like someone from next month. Right?
Yes. Yes, so that's a good strategy. If you are a PR, see, I'm a PR, you know, say it, you know, don't say I'm not, you know, or I mean, of course, they can find out on that. But last, before we have a break now, I just want to point out one thing before. Ruri, you gonna stay on or you gonna just leave?
I can say.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So we can jump in that session. I just want to say, in a job applications, yes, you need to illustrate what you have achieved, what you have done, but they are looking for potentials. You know, there are many things that you haven't done, but they want to make sure that you can do it. Like you've never been a lecturer before. They want to make sure that you can be a lecturer. So you need to think about your potential. You need to tell them more about the potentials that you have. You know, some people apply for a dean position. They've never been a dean in their life, but they got a job. So if they're already a dean, then it'll be easier, right? But it's not always the case. So you only, haven't done a job before, but you need to illustrate that you have the potential. I think that's the key. So there is a difference between self-assessment and self-efficacy, because self-assessment is what you have done, what you have achieved, but self-efficacy is what you can do in the future, and that's what they are also after. Okay, let's have 5 minutes break, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes and we'll continue the other half. Okay, thank you, everyone. Anyway, so okay. Let's continue our other half. And the next activity I want to do is we're gonna do this breakout thing. So I think this is actually a good start for us to practice thinking about applying for a job and so on. So I would put you into the group, and I will how do I do it? I will put a screenshot on the chat as well, so you can look through. So what we do is I've already put in the chat the job. Okay, it's not real job. It's a simulated sort of job. Don't have hope for it. Don't apply for it. It's not there. It might be happening, but it's not there yet. But at least something that you can work out. So in your group, I want you to read the ad and analyze the job requirements and think about the first few steps that you should take or consider based on the job advertisement, and also answer the sort of 3 areas there. Demonstrate your teaching expertise in a job requirement, present coherent research agenda, and also see how you can work on show a strong alignment with the university there. Okay, and then prepare in your group what to discuss and share your ideas and then so far. So I'm gonna stop the screen and then I will do the screen. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna do the screen cap and then I will put this in the chat so that you can somehow download. So it's sent there, and I will put you into your group. Ruri, you want me? I'm gonna put you first as the host, so you can jump in.
Actually, I might need to leave because I just found an important email that I need to reply
all right.
quickly.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry.
So Ruri, thank you so much for your contribution today. It's really useful.
Oh, thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Bye. Catch you later.
Catch you later.
All right. Bye. So I guess I'm gonna do just 2 groups, which is easier. All right. So I've just opened. So you have 10 minutes. Okay.
Hello, are we back?
Yeah, we are back.
Oh, I was saying something. It's cut off.
Oh.
Yes, you are out now.
Oh, that was quick. Sorry.
Yeah, this is really quick. We haven't finished the second one.
Oh, that's all right. 10 minutes gone very quickly.
That was 10 minutes? Oh my God.
Yeah, I thought it's just 5 minutes.
Oh, was it? I'm sure it's 10
No,
minutes.
I mean, like, yeah, it feels like it's just 5 minutes because we just start discussing like the first and second questions.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
You have time to do more at home. Otherwise you won't have enough time to go through other instructions. I think just before we share the the discussion of what you have so far, it doesn't matter how far you are. I'm trying to do a bit of an inductive approach today. So we started with Ruri and Anthony to share what they have, so you have a sense of what it is like, not necessarily like a theory as such. And now next part, then I will do more about some guidelines for you. Okay, so you have a bit of a clearer structure in there. So in your group, would like to share what you've done so far in terms of the ads and so on? Group 1.
It's group 1. Which one is group 1?
So let me have a look. Whoever. Where do I go?
Is it our group? Shelly.
So group 1 is Jerry, Ling Ling, Phoebe, and Shelly.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we kind of skimmed the job advert, and I think what we started off talking about is, I think the first step is like checking if you kind of tick all the boxes for the essential criteria. And then we moved on from that to, well, what do you do if you like, so if I think there was like 7 or 8, like what do you do if you don't fully meet one of them? Like, does that mean that you should just not even bother? Or like, what if you don't have one of the experiences or the criteria if you don't meet it? And then think that's how far we got. But Shelley, feel free to add.
Yeah, we just finished there, and like we discussed, I asked a small question about if you, for example, for the criteria ability to integrate research into teaching practice, what if we don't really have a sound proof or any connected evidence to show that criteria? So yeah, we discussed maybe we can twist a little bit to show the ability or the skill. Yeah,
I think that needs to come through your teaching statement, right? Research inform. You need to somehow craft it in a way that it is relevant to what you do in your research and then what you would practice in the classroom, for example. So if you research motivation, you want to say what you've learned about motivation, you're gonna use it in a classroom. So that sort of transition in there. And I know some of you already done some tutorials as part of your study. Make use of that as something more concrete in addressing that criteria, right? You would say for example, in your tutorials of that, you did this to show that, and so it's more concrete. So you need to look for what you have done in order to integrate and illustrate to that. And if you're doing a PhD without having any teaching opportunity, like tutorial opportunities, then you probably need to start doing that so that you have something there. And always ask your the lecturer to give you the evaluation at the end of the semester, the outcomes there. You can also, because your teaching will contribute to the success of the unit, right? So in some way, you need to be able to claim for that, and also look for some open comments that students provide. They might mention you there, and use that to quote. For example, in that unit, students said about this about me, which illustrate that. Like there's some way that you can make use of. Don't forget that. So if you haven't done so, you need to think about that. Next group.
Yeah, next group I think is us. We were talking about the position. We looked at the position carefully. There was teaching, there was research, there was grant and other things. And the first step for us was to modify our CV, because nowadays there's the applicant tracking system with AI, and they look for keywords and things like that. So we said it would be wise to start with modifying our CV based on these requirements. For example, for the teaching component, you got to put something there, and also for the research component, you got to put something there, and also grant and other things that they require. And also for the next question, how we demonstrate our teaching and research and alignment. For the teaching and research, it can be both in the CV. We can mention the subjects that we have tutored or taught, like research methods and SLA, curriculum design, the things that we've taught, and also highlight it and expand on it in the statement or in the cover letter as well. And we got to have a narrative of how we do the research, like where we started and where we're going. And we can also mention the grants and other things inside the statement or cover letter.
That's very useful. I think one thing. Look, the thing is, when you just finish your PhD and you haven't, like there is a say like catch-22, right? When they ask you to do something, and then in order to illustrate that, you need to have that job first, right? And often it's that case. So you need to work out around to say, and as you know, they don't expect that you would have already been very successful. It's not like a professor applying for this job or something. In that case, it's all like slam dunk. But in this case, they're looking for potentials, right? I think, as I always say, they look for potentials. They want to employ someone they can work with. So you need to work around that. So I put in something like this. If you don't have now, you probably want to start, have a list and tick off in some way, and have a bit of records around that so that you can utilize for. there are some skills and other attributes that universities will be looking for, and I think you should consider that set in advance. So I break this down into several skills. So the first one, if it's again, and Anthony mentioned something quite useful. So we have the research and teaching sort of position, like we call it 40-40-20. So 40% research, 40% teaching, 20% administrative or services, and so on. So that's a very traditional, very typical job. Now there's some movement around having teaching. They call it education focused or teaching focused position, meaning that there will be 80% or 70% teaching, and then the other 30 or 20 would be maybe 10% research or 20% services and other stuff there. So I think there could be something like that, but in that sort of job, then you don't have to highlight so much of the research skill, but bearing in mind that if you are after some kind of teaching research position, you need to find some time to do to do some research as well, because you want to get an ideal job, right? So it's always good to land a first job and then you can move on after. So if you never land a good a first job, it's hard to do anything. So keep that in mind. So what they want to do is that you need to show that you can conduct independent research, right? That if you've done it, yes, you've done your PhD, but you want to look at that because that's what they value, illustrate that through how you executed your research project, how you have published your findings, and so on. So these are things that they will be looking for. How you analyze, interpret data. So if you are good at qualitative, highlight that. If you're good at quantitative, highlight that, for example, or whatever analytical research skills that you have. Any innovations that you have in your approaches to your research, highlight that. And now I think the very good trend nowadays is interdisciplinary collaboration. So think about how you work with others, right? So things like even how you collaborate with your supervisors doing some project or being part of other projects out there. I think that's really important for you to think about. The external research funding, maybe a lot of people who just newly graduated will not have that. You just have to just to say, I think maybe act like we call it passive aggressive kind of approach. Like you can say, even though I haven't got that yet, I hope that I can extend my PhD project into this and that, and start it with something like that, and also to see if you can work as a research assistant with some of the other projects out there. So if you haven't done that, look for that. So then you can somehow mention that in that sort of area. In terms of teaching, I think there are 3 areas. I think they want to focus on effective communication. You can convey complex ideas and so on. So this comes through your teaching statements, of course. How you also illustrate your design, like syllabus design, you design activities, tutorial activities, and so on. So that curriculum development evidence needs to come out quite clearly, and how you evolve the ideas that people pay attention to. So for example, a very common one is the AI. So how do you see AI as part of this curriculum development, how it affects teaching, learning, and how do you deal with that? So that's how you would deal with that as part of your the teaching skills they'll be looking for. Of course, they want you to supervise PhD, and of course you can't do that straight away as part because you need to have some kind of training with the university, because they are specific with some requirements there. But usually if you enter a lecturer level B or even A, you definitely can supervise master students like master's, thesis, and dissertation. So that's the opportunity when you can jump in and say that you can say, look, as part of this, of course you want to supervise higher research degree students like PhD. However, given that you need to have some kind of training, you are confident that you can supervise honors or even master's thesis and dissertation projects and something like that. You definitely can do. There's no things like that, and show that you have done these sort of things before as part of your own learning or something. They also want some other things there. I think that needs to come quite clearly. So some technical cultural skills like the sort of digital literacy, even some subject specific expertise. So this is when you look up the job advertisement, they would say, oh, we want you to teach teaching methodology or something. So that could be some specific area that you can think about. They might ask you to do, they might want someone to teach discourse analysis or something. Then that's how you would work around that. But most importantly, nowadays, it's very important to highlight the cultural competence that you can illustrate as part of this, your awareness of this as part of teaching and learning. Even also that includes something like meeting, understanding, like inclusive education, meeting people with special needs and other things there, how you would address this sort of thing. They want to come through that. They want a good team. So there's so many ways of doing that. One thing of doing that is something like if you collaborated with some people in publications, you can highlight like you are, of course you work with some others and to be successful. Also highlight some kind of course, independent work like sole authors and other things there. That would be something that you can think of. Mentoring is really important. You mentioned that in when you talk about your tutorial activities or something like that, supporting students and even some colleagues that you work with. So this will be the sort of common things there, and that 20% is the administrative part. How you manage your project, how you can see your potential to be a leader in the university. So for level B, a leader could be a coursework coordinator, a unit of study coordinator. They want you to coordinate a unit of study, maybe a big unit of study, maybe a smaller unit of study. So that's already illustrate that sort of leadership roles that you can think of. So you usually, when you enter university, the first couple of years, they don't ask you to do a lot of admin. They also usually don't ask you to do a lot. I don't know, it depends. I guess I can't say that it applies to all places. They want you to adjust your couple of first 2 years to the new place. So they might give you some kind of offload some of your teaching, also then you can adjust and work on some other kind of training like PhD supervision training and other things there. Higher degree fellowships and teaching fellows, and they wanted you to get into that sort of time to do that. So, but it could be something that you can think about, but these are the sort of common things that people would look for. Now I'm going to move on to this one, and I think this is more like a lecture style, more or less. So when you apply for a job, so I put in something like 4 areas that you probably need to think of and do it now if you haven't done so. So then you can plan. If there's a job out there, you can jump in and then save as the file and modify it to a particular job. So there will be, the first thing is we call the core application document. So this is a must-have. You pay attention to this, is definitely the top grade there. You need to have the so-called a cover letter. So this one needs to be tailored to the position that you apply. You want to highlight the fit that you have, you fit in this job, right? And you're excited to apply for it. And the next part is curriculum vitae or CV. This one you need to have detailed academic records, including education, publication, teaching, grant, services, and some other things there. I used to run a workshop on CV. CVs can be different in different countries. In say in Thailand they have a different format there. In Australia they have a different structure. In some places people ask applicant to attach or add their picture in there. In Australia we don't ask people to put their picture in there. So it depends on wherever you apply, but it needs to have a structure. So always test and look for examples of CV in a particular country. I think that would definitely help in there. But again, my strategy though that I can share is when you apply for a job, more is more. Sometimes people say less is more. Let them guess, let them be excited about you. Don't tell them much so they can be excited about you. It probably sometimes doesn't work like that way. When you apply for a job, like in the academic world, they want to know more about you because first they do desk reject, right? So if you don't really provide anything much, like let me guess, they would desk reject you. So you're not even gone through the second round. So you need to have more information relevant to what they're after. And also it shows investment that you put into doing this. You're not just doing generic kind of cover letter or CV, and you need to work on that. So more is more to me for when you apply for a job, but there's some strategies that you need to work with, right? The next key things that you should have is, which we have covered so far also, is about teaching statement and research statement, especially with this sort of academic career. You can't apply, you can submit cover letter and curriculum vitae and that's it. If you very strong and they really want to have you, then you get through to the next round and you might end up being employed. But if you want to ensure that they understand more about your philosophy around teaching and research, you need to provide that. So teaching statement is about showing your teaching philosophy, the method of teaching, any evidence of the effectiveness of your teaching. Research statement, or on the other hand, is about your research agenda, what you want to research, what your primary interest and why that topic. You want to show your achievements, such as through publications of that areas that you said, seminars, presentations at conferences, and how you see yourself in the next 5 years, the future plan. You can't do the same topic for the next 5 years, right? So for example, if you do writing as part of your PhD research and you want to say in the next 20 years I'm going to still be doing writing, right? You can't, sometimes you need to move on to specific things. So you want to show that future plans, right? What do you want to see that? Other supporting academic evidence is really important. I think it's always good to attach an example of your article. Don't expect that they will Google. Okay, Google search. Okay, what's the publication? Okay, let's download that and we'll read that. Don't give them like an approach to this is like feeding a baby. Babies need to eat, right? When they cry, we sort of, maybe it's a time for them to eat and you feed them, right? So an approach for this is feed the committee, the publications, the strongest one that you have. So they don't need to download anywhere. It's there for them, it's part of the attachment there. So they can click and download and do it rather than having them to search for you. And if you have any teaching portfolio, like if you develop a syllabus or having evaluations from university that formally done to show where you have illustrate your performance and attach that as part of that, because that is supporting evidence that you should include in your application. And the last one is references. You need to have, usually they would say at least 2 to 3 referees, right? You list them, ask your professor in advance, and before you submit, then you can tell them like, professor, I have applied for this. You might hear from them. You don't just put their names there. But another thing that I found to be quite useful is, yes, you can put a list of them. I would also ask them to write something for me as well, so it's there. They can ask more some questions with the professors or someone there more. But if there's some basic information there already that they can study and understand, then that also is your benefit, right? So in my case, I would say more is more, but you need to have a structure of what you need to present in your things. You need to think of this in a more coherent way. So you have cover letter, curriculum vitae, teaching statement, research statement, and contact details for reference. You need to have them to work together. You don't want to repeat the same information everywhere. You need to say, use some kind of flagging, right? See, further discuss in curriculum vitae or further discuss in research statement or whenever you can. So you need to have that sort of integrated application package as part of your application. The next one, again, it's more like a lecture style, and I think this is probably something that you have already started to learn from Ruri and Anthony. What makes a good cover letter, right? I don't think we have the answer to that because it depends on what they look for and so on. But I think sometimes a shorter cover letter will not work. In that case, like dear blah blah blah, I would like to apply for this job. I look forward to having the interview with you. Sincerely yours. You're not gonna get there. Unless you are already very famous. And someone that they are actually after, then maybe they know who you are and so on. But most of the time, even if you are famous, in your field, other people might not know you still. So they want to see that, right? So I have some structure that of course I will share this PowerPoint with you. And this is how I ran the workshop and when Anthony and Ruri attended, right? So we have some kind of key things that you need to try to cover in your letter. You need to show that you have a clear fit with the position. So again, like someone said earlier, if you don't think you will fit in, then don't apply because you're not gonna get it, and it will demotivate you further. So you need to make sure that you have a potential that you can fit in. And I would say you probably can't. It will be good if you can address all the criteria, but if you can't address some criteria, just say look, it give a different way of frame it differently. Like yes, you haven't got the grant, but you plan to apply for a grant based on this and that, to work on that. So in some way you need to work on it. You need to illustrate a strong academic profile. So I used to run a session on working on academic profile like LinkedIn or wherever. You need to start doing that because that's where you would show people how you've done it, what you have published, and then sort of network that you have. So that's really something that you can provide as part of your application. You need to be specific to a particular institution, what they focus on there in the job advertisement. Don't make it generic, like I'm applied linguistics researcher or something. You need to be more specific to exactly what you do. This is number 4 is that story that we want to hear from you, right? You want to have a coherent and personalized stories in there that they want to get to understand and see, oh, this person is actually quite unique. Because if you are shortlisted, I'll probably skip a little bit. So the procedure basically is like, they advertise a job and there will be applications, and many times there could be hundreds of applicants there. So they need to choose the top 5, for example, or maybe top 10 initially. So they need to screen, and then they need to then say, okay, this is top 5, this top 10, this top 15, or this like bottom 50. So a lot of those will be rejected straight away. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, after careful considerations, you don't fit in what we're after. So they do that very quickly. And the remaining one will be the top 5, top 10. And that's what you should be in order to get the job, right? So you need to make sure that you work on that narrative and illustrate this sort of information with them. So therefore, cover letter, you also need to include that narrative and evidence of impact, how you understand the role in the job, and any kind of things that you want to illustrate and emphasize in your application, right? And finally, it need to have that sort of professional tone or structure, clear, concise, organized. If you're messy in your cover letter, like you don't know what you're doing in there, you're not gonna get there. You need to be well structured in there. So here are common structures that you can think of in a cover letter. The first thing is you need to have opening paragraph, right? You state the position you're applying for, introduce yourself, your profile, and I think you should focus on clear fit with the position, right? And the second move is to work on your research profile paragraph. So of course you will have a teaching and research statement in there, but this is more like a truncated version, a summarized version of it. So you want to highlight your expertise, your focus, some mentioning some of the key publications. If you don't have a lot, that's okay. It's early entry for the level. They don't expect a lot. If you have anything like under review, submitted, in press, put all mention them there, and then you can say as see detail in the CV or something. So do that. You want to have that sort of strong academic profile, even if you don't think it is strong, but you need to somehow try to do that way. Anthony's advice: don't compare yourself with others. That's the good advice, I would say. Don't try to say, oh, but I only have one publication, I only have two publications, I have no publication. Don't worry about it. Do whatever you can there. And if you pass through, you pass through. And the situation is sometimes people may have a lot, but they're not going to get through either. So try not to think like comparing with others. The next one is to have the so-called teaching profile paragraph. So again, that's the move there: research and then teaching profile. But again, depending on the job you are applying, if it's a teaching focus or education focus, then you want to have teaching profile first. Mention things like your teaching philosophy and this and that. I think you can develop more of this in the teaching statement. Course you taught and so on, because you want to show that you understand the role of teaching, right? Then you want to look into the fit with the department or the institution. Like I would say, when you apply for a job, if you really want to get it, go to their website, look for the academic staff, the profile there, and what the programs there, what do they teach there, master, undergraduate, PhD, this and that. So look at that and see if you can relate yourself to that, and mention some people that my work aligned well with doctor blah 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 blah, say that, because that's what they want to see. That or back here with the teaching profile, if you already looked up the course there, like you want to teach that unit or something, then say so. In the advertisement there, they mention multilingual education, and that's the sort of things that you would be expected to teach. Then you can mention like, you taught that, or your interest is aligned with this and that. So you tailor that in. Okay. And then you end with the closing paragraph, reaffirm your interest and so on, and mention attached document. So this is a very common structure that you should think of when you work on the structure. The next one, I know I'm running out of time, but I'm gonna have to rush through with this. But in terms of teaching statements, we also have structure, and then you can see that already from Ruri. Ruri look at research statement, but Anthony look at teaching. I think he's very generous to share what he has done. I think you need to be tough. I think Anthony is very tough to be, we call it mental toughness, right? Even if you get rejected, you just keep going, right? That's something that makes a lot of difference. So basically, you need to think about these core questions as you work through. What do you believe about the teaching? The statement should show your philosophy. Look up some key philosophers. Like if you believe, for example, look up and cite something like sociocultural theory or something, or someone well known in the sort of teaching space that that's a sort of philosophy that you adopt, how do you're teaching any approach like feedback orientation, personalized feedback, or and so on. That's what you need to do. How do you support your own students learning? So inclusion, engagement, how do you know that your teaching works? You think about evidence and effectiveness, and why here, why at this university, right? And that's important for your statement. So I have again some kind of criteria or the structure that you can think of in your teaching statement. The first, and I would say use these as headings in your teaching statement. Don't assume that they would be able to extract like, oh, you're talking about philosophy now, or you're talking about your designer. Don't do that. Just put it in right in front of them. Make it a heading, teaching philosophy. So then here will be something that you can think of in your teaching philosophy. Things, key terms like student-centered, inclusive, engagement, critical thinking. Say work around this. Of course, it needs to be about you. The next one then you can do is called teaching method. So in here, think about things like active learning, collaborative learning, technology integration, right? Because that's what they would be doing. Experiential learning, right? Hands-on activities and so on. And then the third one is on course development. You involve in any curriculum design, innovative projects, any assessment strategies. So things like this is part of that part that you need to illustrate and think of. Be more specific. Don't just say vague terms there. You need to say, for example, and be specific to what you could do. Even that, in the job advertisement that I put in for you, there's a mentioning about teaching methodology. So you might want to highlight some of that in terms of curriculum design. If I were to reevaluate and redesign the course on teaching methodology, I would integrate the following. So that's what they want to hear, and then that will be also something that is more specific to that sort of teaching statement. Again, teaching statement. Don't forget, you can work on a general ones that you can adjust in each job that you apply, or so if you be specific to a particular place, make sure that you remove that in the next job, because otherwise it might be something like, oh, people will realize that, oh, you recycle that, and it's like not but the job I'm after, so that thing. Number 4 is on student support, highlight on mentorship, academic advising, feedback, okay, highlight on personalized constructive feedback to students and so on. Number 5 is on research integration. This is the part that I think someone mentioned, asked Anthony, like, how do you use research inform in the teaching? For example, you might have done something like a survey in your classroom, and then you use the outcome to change some teaching or do something like that, or use your own research publications to apply to the teaching. This one is easier because you can say more about it. If you focus on writing, you learn about problems in writing and you integrate that into your teaching practice, right? And you mentioned any of your contribution to scholarship of teaching. If you are now still doing a PhD, maybe think about a tutor award or something, ask students to nominate you to get the award, because that's the external evidence, so that you can say I received a tutor award, so because it shows that students are students appreciate my contributions, so anything like that. If you go for a promotion, once you get the job, you go for a promotion, you need to make sure that you also get teaching awards, because university will be looking for that, so you need to work around something like this as part of that. Professional development, you want to show that you don't stop learning, you're committed to doing more work on something. You offer some workshops. So sometimes it looks like it's more like professional contributions, like I'm running workshops like this, right? Funny enough, look, I'm doing it because I'm enjoying it. But at the same time, there's a byproduct to this too. If you think about it, like for me, if I have to do evaluation at the end of the year, I can mention I run workshops, right? These professional contributions, and this is the evidence. They can't. I'm not lying. I have the evidence here. I have PowerPoints. I have dates, right? I have advertisement out there. They can refer to. I'm not lying. So if you have any kind of workshop that you are invited, any invited seminars, anything like that, any conferences, keep the record of that, because that's what you say. You've done this, you know. So in some way, it's a long-term investment, and you need to be quite conscious about it. So that's the one for the teaching statement. The one for research, again, similarly, you want to highlight on some kind of what you study, the sort of your own identity as a researcher. I think that's what they would be after. Why does it matter? Why does your research matter? I think this is a deep question. A lot of people don't know why their research matter. Like, do you know why your research matters? Sometimes it's hard to articulate on that. So if you start earlier, you have more to think about. What have you done so far? Track record. I want to mention this quickly. Track record. A lot of people like finishing their PhD don't have a lot of publication records, right? And you feel like, I'm not going to get the job. Again, like I said, they look for potential. So if and they don't expect that you will have a lot of publications already. However, if you finish your PhD for 5 years, you only have one publication, or you have no publication after 5 years, and you're applying for the job, and then they want to see, oh, what is the potential here? You finished 5 years now, you don't have publication. So what's the would they employ you? I don't know. But if you started to have ongoing publications after you finish PhD, right? It shows your potential that you continue to do that. And that's what they're after. So don't stop doing publications now after your PhD. The more you do, the merrier, because that's what they would see, your potentials there. Okay. So they forgive you in your after you finish your PhD, but 5 years on, if you don't really have anything, you might not be suitable for that job. You know, they will not pick you for that. So lastly, the criteria that you need to think of in your research, right? You need to think of clear research identity. So use your PhD research to talk about this. Okay. You know, show your main themes, your questions, refer to your PhD thesis or studies that you've done. Think about the trajectory of your research projects as well, like how you would continue doing this as part of your current future job with them. Okay, you want to continue that because one of the criteria that university will be looking for is national, international recognition, that people will know you in the country and internationally later on. So they want you, then the best thing to do is to extend what you have done so far and then have track records of that. So that's what they're after. So you want to articulate that through in your identity and focus, right? So you can say in the next 5 years, I will continue doing this, you know, my PhD, this, and there are emerging questions that need to be done based on this, and this will be something that you aim to. Your contribution, any gaps that you address, I think that's important, things that you want to argue. Any productivity, any track records, publications, any completed projects, so something like that you can list. If you don't have, you can't list something you don't have. don't make up like I've got grants, you know, like if I haven't got, don't do it, because that's a suicidal. You will get rejected straight away, and you might be in the blacklist. So sometimes it's okay if you don't have it, say I don't have it, you know, or sometimes don't say it even. You might have to skip some of the headings there, if that's the case. But you work through it, right? They also should include something like rigor, right? Your expertise. You know, if you are quantitative researchers, or if you mix methods, if you are particular type of researcher, highlight that, because that's your expertise, right? You can also refer to these who complement the programs in some way. So things like that is really important. be consistent with the narrative, like past, present, future, kind of PPF line. So then they can see your trajectory about the further directions, right? And funding potentials, I put potentials here because a lot of the committees might not even see if you have any fundings, especially when you just graduated and something like that. But if you want to look at, like, as soon as I get the job, I would apply for a small grant on this and that, on that project, because that's funding opportunities, right? There would be small grants, that could be something, or I would like to work with a colleague on that project, this and that. So work on that. It's important to think about that. Okay. So I think last but not least, start now about your short-term and long-term career goals. I think jobs and career is quite different, as you know. Career is what you actually will live and enjoy, right? Short-term will be something like a mini steps that you need. So based on what we talked today in the workshop, listening to Ruri and Anthony and the sort of points that we discussed, what would be the sort of mini step, achievable steps that you should have? If you don't have publication, maybe have to start now, because then it will come through the pipeline. If you feel like I don't have enough teaching, ask your supervisor or someone to see, can I become a tutor next semester, something like that. Okay. And if they have a research project, can you employ me as a research assistant? So you can say I am a research assistant, right? Because that's already built you into that. So very important to have the short-term, long-term goals in there. All right. So before we finish today, I 10 minutes extra. Any questions or something that you may have?
I can ask question.
Yep.
Related to research statement, like can I also put like the experience of being a reviewer for a book proposal, because I already did that, but I know that become reviewer is kind of anonymous, so I can't also like reveal my like what I did or something. So do you have any?
You definitely can mention that you were invited to do so, right? You got invited to review this. I'm sure you can mention the institution that invited you. I guess you don't need to talk about the specific review, right? Proposal. You can mention, like, something, some national funds and this and that invited you to do this and that. Yeah. If you have examined a dissertation or a thesis, I mean, now if you have a PhD or something, then that's what you do, right? You want to say that, right? Even though I haven't supervised a dissertation because or master's dissertation or thesis, because you haven't actually got the job yet, you already have examined thesis, dissertation, right? So it means that you have that sort of capacity to do so. Any question?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Jerry, maybe the last question, I guess.
Thank you. It's actually maybe, so it's a question not strictly related to these like paperwork, but like I'm just curious about like the Australian context in terms of like usually like how many rounds of like when you submit an application and then you have like you go through like these documents get you to help, if there's like 100 applicants, you get through to like, and then like what happens next? Because I kind of know the UK context, or at least the Leeds context, but I'm curious if it's the same here. Like there is like the online interview and then the campus visit and then more interviews, and like if you can maybe just, but maybe this is a too broad or far question.
No. Actually, it's quite straightforward. Actually, so it depends. It depends, right? I would say it might differ across institution. So first they do this select, right? They have to shortlist the strong candidates, right? So there will be a lot of test reject and so on, right? So they have the top people. They might do if it's top 10, they might do online interview first. And so once they've done the online, they want to see the person, right? And then see this and that. Of course, now online is a bit tricky because there could be avatar, there could be fake AIs and so on. You never know. So they might want to, be very careful with that. But once they've done that first that screen, then they will invite the maybe top 3 or someone they really, these are strong candidates for the job to come to university to do that. Usually they will pay the flights and accommodations and so on. They would just invite you in.
And is that like an interview, like an in-person interview, or is there like?
So usually they would invite you to present your research. Have an hour research presentation. They want to see you how you present the work, and then there will be then another separate interview to talk about this and that, to get to know you, this and that. So then once you've been through that, you should be very happy. You should be very excited if you've gone through like that. And then you get it. But I think they're quite flexible with that. So sometimes it would be because you might not be able to travel. Say you're so far away and this and that, and if you're already in that sort of last round, you probably would be okay to do the online interview. There'll be the people around to ask you questions and so on there. I think that's already, a lot of things now like that.
So it's fairly similar, I think, to the UK.
Yeah, very similar, I would say.
Thank
I think
you.
Australian academics very similar to UK. All right, everyone, all the very best. So in the future, if you draft something, you found something, you know who to reach out, right? I'm happy to have a look at what you have done, and if time is right, I will give you also feedback and suggestions as well. And I hope that the workshop today is something useful and help you plan further. Okay, and wishing you a lovely weekend. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Aek. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. I will see you
everyone.
at PowerPoint. Okay, bye.